Spear is releasing tomorrow, December the 5th. That's just later today for some of you guys, and it's going to be insanely powerful. Well, at least for mob group farming in open world dungeons and those mob groups between the bosses in those co-op dungeons. Ultimately in this video, I'm going to go through everything you need to know in order to start farming day one with the new spear. It's releasing like all the other weapons with 12 active skills, 7 passive skills, and a new defense skill. It also has its own unique mastery tree. So let's get into the details and the setup I recommend. A very strong combo is going to be with dagger and spear for getting all that extra multi-target damage, because they synergize pretty well with weakened effects and stacking extra benefits for melee attacks. But that's not to say you won't be able to use a multitude of different weapons. Lots of testing will have to be done, but for now we're going to cover just dagger and spear, and primarily for multi-target mob farming. The first ability we get here is called Culling Arc, and for multi-target damage you need this specialization to make it Flaming Arc. When used, you stab your target, and then the second activation is a swing attack, and this can put 2 ignite stacks on your target, which is important. The tiny damage over time, but it can cause your target to explode, which we'll discuss later. So the next ability I recommend is Javelin Inferno. This is huge, and you're going to want to have the first 2 specializations here. There isn't yet a proper translation with that, but I'll get into how it works. But in order to cast this thing, you're going to need Ember stacks, and in order to get those Ember stacks you're going to need to use the ability Explosive Fury. By default it is Vicious Fury. You'll get this specialization here, and now it's Explosive Fury. And what this allows you to do is to cast this ability 5 times, and every cast will give you an Ember stack. You have to be quick though, or it simply goes on cooldown, as you saw there. So it's going to be a spam ability, and you're going to have to mash that 5 times, and once you do you get 5 Ember stacks, which allows you to now cast your Javelin 5 times, just like this. The higher attack speed you have, of course, the faster you'll be able to cast that. And be aware, I am playing on the Korean server with like 300 or 400 pings, so all my actions are delayed by quite a bit. You will then also want a Rising Slash, which can take advantage of those ignite stacks you put on your target. So every attack here can trigger an ignite stack, which is the damage over time effect, same like we had with our first ability here. And when you reach 10 stacks of ignite, your target's going to explode, but you can cause them to explode prematurely with this Rising Slash. So let's put those stacks back on our target. We now have 6 stacks. We'll use our Rising Slash. You're going to have to cast it twice, and the second time will cause the nuke on the target. Now that was only just over 5,000 damage, and it's going to be a multi-target effect, but I am only at about 2,000 CP with just starter gear you get here in Korea. So that will be quite a bit higher when you actually have decent gear. You will also want Phoenix Barrage. So this is originally Cyclonic Fury, a bit of a whirl attack. And when you make it this barrage, it's a large cone attack, just like this. And you do massive amount of attacks to everybody within that area. It's going to be great for getting extra ignite stacks too. And then another very impactful ability is Unyielding Sentinel. You're going to want to boost it with range and also with the shield. What this does then when you level it up is give you an absolute massive amount of heavy attacks. So we're currently at 200 and now we're over 800. So we gained over 500 heavy attack just through this one ability. It's huge, but does only last for 3 seconds. The alternative is a support effect. When you take this specialization, it will now increase by 175 for all party members within 16 meters for 6 seconds. Definitely the go-to when running dungeons with a group. Then we have Storm Blitz. You can just rush at your targets just like your rush ability, and you will be able to use it multiple times if you combo it with some CC effects, but it'll give you a little bit of an attack speed boost. Alternative, you can use the fancy Death from Above ability, but in PvE it's a bit too long of a cast time to really be worth it. You're going to charge that up here and you leap at your targets just there and you fear them for 3 seconds. Gonna be clutch in PvP, but in PvE, not so much. Also, you're gonna have to upgrade this thing because it starts out at only 45% chance to actually fear the guys. And at max level, that's 75% chance. And if you get the specialization, you can get that up to then a 90% chance. Then as like a bit of a filler ability, we have Blood Leech Aura, which is just this here. You deal a bit of damage around you and you gain a bit of lifesteal. And honestly, it's very underwhelming. It doesn't deal much damage, and so it doesn't actually heal you for that much. We have it here because there's not really much other options to put there. Other abilities like Tempest Strike is going to be a bit of a CC effect for PvP. Cataclysm, the same thing, can be insane with regards to blocking your enemy from being able to use their defense ability. So they won't be able to like use their Q block, their dodge. And then there's like Abyssal Cleave, which is another stun effect. So in PvE, this is what I would go with, and I would support it with the abilities from Dagger. You want your Lightning Infusion, which is normally Inject Venom there. You want your Thunder Spirit, which is normally Umbral Spirit, just extra damage on all of those hits, along with, say, Fatal Stigma, while you're farming those groups of enemies. And this synergizes really well with, say, your passive abilities, which are going to be like, when you apply a weakened effect, you can gain bonus attack speed. When a target dies who had a weakened effect, you gain bonus attack speed. And then the other ones are like when you're just attacking with your spear, you have a chance to gain skill damage boost. When you land critical hits on targets below 30% health, you do extra damage. And when you deal damage 3 times with an active skill, you'll increase your critical hit chance of the next attack by a massive 700. And then just a 5% chance when you take damage to increase your heavy attack by like 140. This is only blue. And then you can use the passive from the dagger, giving you the extra crit and the crit damage. And that's pretty much a setup I would recommend using. And I would still go with Block Blade as your main defense ability here, as it's generally better than the new one we get with the spear. Patient block just allows you to kind of roll like that. And if you block a fury attack, you can just deal a little bit of extra damage with Impaling Impact if you dodged it with a move attack, or if you were just standing still, you can evade ranged and magic projectiles. So that can be useful in certain situations in PvP, but in most cases, still better off going invisible with this. So your rotation goes like this. You're going to use your Explosive Fury 5 times to stack the embers. Once you got that, you can buff up with, say, your daggers abilities and getting the heavy attack. You can use your javelin and your stigma, and you'll just output some insane damage against all of these targets. And you can follow up with your Rising Strike to nuke a guy. Your Flaming Arc can be used to gain more stacks of Ignite on the target with those 2 like combo abilities. And then also your Phoenix Barrage will cause massive amount of hits, which also gives more Ignite stacks. It's pretty much whenever you critically hit with these abilities, you will put Ignite on the target. The description for what Ignite exactly does is in the description of Flaming Arc. You cause them to explode at 10 stacks, dealing 460% of base damage, and also to enemies within a 3-meter radius. This is not as good as if you were to use Rising Slash to trigger those Ignite stacks to deal upwards of 20% more damage per Ignite stack on the target. And with this effect, you also get the 3-meter radius. So get those Ember stacks. You can only have 5. They last 30 seconds. Then use your buff up abilities, your stigma, and then use the javelins. And you just, yeah, it's absolutely nuts how much damage those abilities do. You can follow up then with, say, using that barrage, triggering more ignites on the target, then our Rising Slash to burst those, and you pretty much just rotate between using those abilities. And yeah, if you can do some serious multi-target damage here on Spear, it is quite crazy. I have never on any class melted enemies as quick as with Spear, even with a scuffed setup like this. I will mess around further with, say, Crossbow next, and looking at, say, single target damage and, say, the Gate of Infinity to compare versus what I have with, say, the damage from Crossbow and Dagger. But I will have to wait until this is actually on global so I can use my global character to compare equally. Because again, I only just hit level 50 here last night, and we got some scuffed gear, so we can do a little bit of damage. And even with this as a showcase, it's pretty incredible the amount of damage you do per hit with those spear abilities, especially this javelin. Like, even look at all those lightning arcs spreading out all the way over there, and that's from the dagger though. Keep in mind, that javelin attack is actually pretty far reaching. Like, I can shoot from all the way over here, those 5 javelin attacks, and then I need to get the ember stacks again. So yes, I'll have to be close. I can use, say, my rush ability, then use the explosive fury attacks, and then jump back and throw my javelins. To make the most of that, you could use shadow escape with the specialization to jump in, get your ember stacks, jump back out, and then throw your javelins. Overall, this should show you how you can get ahead and deal some massive area damage on your spear and breeze through farming on your first few days with spear before we come out with more specific builds. You will find in the video description below a link to my Questlog build right now. I will change the link to being over on global as soon as we get this update. We'll have the new runes, we'll have the new spears, and out of the new spears we can actually obtain for PvE, what I recommend is actually the resistance spear. And the reason behind this is because when you actually look at all of them and the bonuses that they'll have, they're not actually that good for PvE, like Balandiers. Why would you use this effect in PvE? It will be useful via the perception and the cooldown speed, and it will be very viable, but yeah, out of reach of many of you. Shaikal's spear is one that's easy to obtain, simply from Cursed Wasteland right here, but it's not actually good, because the effect does not benefit you at all, and it gives you 9 strength and hit chance, which also doesn't really benefit you that much for PvE, because the Shaikal bonus doesn't stack with your Javelin Inferno. You can only use it with the Javelin Surge, which is just not great for PvE. And then there's Junoboat's Spear. This one gives 10 Fortitude, not going to be great for PvE. With a ton of max health, might help with your survivability. And the bonus here is, yes, a bit of an extra damage effect, and it will help to gain extra ignite stacks with it. But for most of you, it will still be inaccessible, and it ultimately boils down to either Shaikal's Spear or the Resistance Spear. And so out of those 2 accessible spears, I would just go with the Resistance Spear. Here on Questlog, you can also see my skills again. You can inspect exactly what I'm using there, the entire setup, the specializations, and in terms of the masteries, it's just all the middle ones and the rest bottom. And your dagger is, as usual, all bottom, the rest middle. Ultimately, that's it for the spear update and my overall build that I recommend you go with, starting out to farm all your groups of enemies. You should easily complete any of those open world dungeons, slaughter all the groups of enemies, do your contracts, quests, etc. So thanks all for watching, and we'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.